Hidden in the deep valleys of Madhya Pradesh lies Barhampur, a village defined by a 400-year-old secret. According to local lore, the night belongs to the Nishir Molo, 4 shadowy figures who roam the darkness carrying a heavy coffin on their shoulders. There is only one rule if you hear their rhythmic chanting in the woods. You hide, you do not move, and you do not look at them, because making eye contact with the Nishir Molo guarantees you will not survive the night. A young villager named Madan learned this the hard way. Ignoring his father's warnings, he walked into the Saturday night forest to meet his friends. When the heavy footsteps and the chanting began, he ducked into the brush. But fear got the better of him, and he peeked out, locking eyes with the 4 men carrying the coffin. When the village search party found him the next morning by a banyan tree, Madan was still alive, but his mind was completely broken. He was locked in a catatonic state, his eyes wide with a terror that suggested he had witnessed something worse than death. For the people of Barhampur, the Nishir Molo exist as a tangible, lethal threat, a force that demands absolute obedience to the ancient rules of the forest. Miles away in a brightly lit laboratory in modern Delhi, a completely different kind of pressure is brewing. 2 scientists, Meghna and Ishita, are running out of time to synthesize a complex new antidote for their demanding professor. While Ishita pores over formulas, Meghna is struggling with exhaustion, plagued by a recurring nightmare. Every night she is chased through a dark forest by a monstrous bird, eventually slamming into an ancient tree that drips a glowing green sap. Desperate for a breakthrough on their assignment, Ishita pulls out an old book of folklore. She points to a passage describing a legendary liquid called the Mrityunjay Amrit, an elixir of immortality, and suggests they could isolate its chemical properties to stabilize their research and finalize the antidote formula. Meghna initially brushes it off as superstitious nonsense. Then she looks at the illustration on the page. The tree depicted, said to secrete this green liquid every full moon, is an exact visual match to the tree from her nightmares. Driven by a mix of scientific ambition and morbid curiosity, the 2 pack their bags for Barhampur. They intend to harvest a biological specimen, completely unaware that their rational pursuit is about to collide with ancient folklore. They arrive at the village under a simple cover story, introducing themselves to the local headmen as university students doing a historical study on local settlements. But the environment reacts immediately to their presence. The moment the girls stepped through the main gates, a sweltering afternoon instantly collapsed into freezing winds and rolling black storm clouds. The locals are stunned by the sudden weather, but the village priest sees it differently. He watches the unnatural darkness swirling above and recognizes it as a warning that a long-dormant evil has finally been disturbed. The omens follow them indoors. While the village headman warmly offers the girls a room in his home, the sacred flames burning in his personal temple suddenly snuff out. Across the village, the main temple's lamps die at the exact same moment. The village's reaction is physical and immediate. From the plummeting temperature to the extinguished temple lamps, the arrival of these outsiders has coincided with the return of Barhampur's darkest omens. Safe in their room, Meghna and Ishita ignore the howling wind outside and focus on their real target, the Raj Mahal. This abandoned king's palace sits in the center of the village and has been sealed shut for 400 years. To get inside, they recruit the headman's son, Anuj. Flattered by the attention of 2 city girls, he agrees to wait until his parents are asleep and sneak them over to the ruins at midnight. Meghna and Ishita treat the plan like a late-night campus prank. Outside their window, however, the rest of the village is locked in a state of sheer panic, aggressively barricading their doors as the storm intensifies. Right on schedule, Anuj leads them out into the violent weather. The trio navigates the pitch-black, narrow dirt alleys, fighting against heavy gusts of wind as they inch closer to the towering silhouette of the palace. The girls think they are being clever, bypassing local superstition to gather their scientific data. In reality, they're leaving the safety of locked doors at the exact hour the deadly folklore begins to hunt. Finding the main doors heavily rusted, Anuj pries open a jammed window, allowing the 3 of them to slip inside the damp, pitch-black corridors of the Raj Mahal. As their flashlight beams sweep over the dusty arches and elaborate stonework, A chilling wave of recognition washes over Meghna. She has never been to this village, let alone this building, but she intuitively knows the layout. The turns, the hidden rooms, the architecture, it all feels intimately familiar to her. Then, the silence of the ruin breaks. A rhythmic thudding starts to echo down the hallway. It sounds like heavy boots, like the synchronized marching of ancient soldiers patrolling a corridor where absolutely no one is standing. Meghna's nocturnal visions align too perfectly with the physical architecture of the ruin to be a coincidence. She is bound to Barhampur's history by a connection that defies her scientific training. At that exact moment, on the dark edge of the forest, two local men named Sampat and Kapta are shivering in the cold, having stayed out far too late playing cards. The howling wind drops for a fraction of a second, just long enough for them to hear a deep, rhythmic chant approaching from the trees. Bam, bam, bash. Before they can run, 4 massive, shadowy figures step out of the heavy mist. Their eyes glow a piercing red as they lock their gaze onto the 2 terrified villagers, the massive wooden coffin resting heavily on their shoulders. The chanting stops. Slowly, the heavy wooden lid of the coffin begins to creak open. A second later, a horrific, blood-curdling scream rips through the night sky, so loud it jolts every sleeping villager wide awake. Back inside the palace, Meghna, Ishita, and Anuj freeze. Right in front of them, an unseen, massive door slowly grinds open into total darkness, leaving the 3 of them staring in shock. By treating local lore as a simple lab assignment, Meghna and Ishita have ignored the village's warnings and walked directly into a predatory cycle that has waited 4 centuries to resume.